Good afternoon, this is Melanie from Blue Diamond, and I wanted to talk to you today about presentations. Now, who loves doing presentations? Hands up. Um, I guess if we were in a room of people, I wouldn't really see many hands going up in the air. And it's got me wondering, well, why is this? And there's various different quotes or different anecdotes about people rather, um, well, being the person at the front of the room in the box rather than giving the eulogy or speaking at a funeral. And it got me thinking, well, why is this? Now, sometimes it might be the pressure that we put on ourselves. Sometimes it might be because we're put up there as the expert. Sometimes it's the pressure of, oh, what if we get asked a question and we're not sure how to answer it? There might be another thing. Sometimes it's because there might be lots and lots of people involved, or we're familiar with the audience, or we're not familiar with the audience, and there could be all these different reasons. But at the end of the day, all we're doing is communicating with people. So often we're talking about well, who's in the audience or trying to imagine, the audience with no clothes on or to give people eye contact. But at the end of the day, we are having a conversation with one or more other people. And when we're having a conversation or when we're entering into communication, there's a few important things. One of those things is the message that we're trying to convey. One of those things is, well, who's the audience and what do they already know? Or what do they not already know? Or, what do we know about them? So trying to learn more about the audience. But the other thing is the inner story. It's our own internal narrative that might be going on. And there could be some positive things going on here. There could be, well, I've given this presentation before, or I've been in this meeting and communicated this information before. But there could also be some negative things going on. Oh, I hate public speaking. Or last time I was in a similar situation, I was asked a question that I couldn't answer. Or these people are expecting me to be the expert and I don't really know what I'm talking about. So there could be all kinds of things that are going on internally, and it could be useful for us to explore some of these things, not right up when we're having to do the presentation or having that communication and being in front of our audience, but being able to step back from this at a point in time before we have to next be in that situation. Now, roll back the clock a few years ago, and I'm talking quite a few years ago. I wasn't always as confident at doing this. In fact, I remember a number of times where I first got in front of the camera, and actually, I did a lot of Facebook Lives with my phone to get me used to this. But I want to roll back the clock even further than that. And this was back when I was 16. And I was just about to go into sixth form college. Everybody had to turn up for an open day, and we all had to say what our name was, what school we were coming from, and what A levels we were going to do. And there were probably around 60 people in the room. And out of all of those 60 people, one of those people wasn't able to do this, and that was me. And I had a bit of a traumatic event when it came round to me. I was probably in the latter half of the room, so I probably had to sit and watch everybody else's presentation, and my heart was beating, and I was probably feeling a bit sweaty, and my palms were a bit sweaty, and I was very nervous about having to stand up and speak. And the moment came, it got to me, and I stood up and I couldn't speak. I burst into giggles, very nervous giggles, and that was the end of that particular episode. That experience actually lingered with me for a long time. It wasn't one that I wanted to repeat, and so every chance I got in terms of speaking, every chance I got for a long, long time, I would avoid. I would be the person that would be writing up the project rather than be the person standing in front having to present the project. And even putting my hand up and asking questions was something that I would shy away from. So, how did I get from where I was then to where I am now, which is pretty comfortable talking on video and also pretty comfortable talking in a room of people? Well, part of that was practice, part of that was persuading myself, giving myself those opportunities, realizing that actually speaking up, especially when I have something important to say, isn't necessarily a bad thing. So, giving myself those opportunities, really stepping outside of my comfort zone, and realizing that I could do it, realizing that actually I wasn't going to melt and it wasn't too bad. But there's something else that I have done to help prepare myself for certain situations. And this is something called anchors that I learnt about when I did an NLP course. And the idea behind anchors is, and some of the other NLP techniques, is that we can manage our state. And our state is how we are, how we show up, how we feel in certain situations. Now, sometimes we think that states are a negative thing. So if we think about, oh, somebody's in a right state, or I arrived and I was late and I was in a bit of a state, but states can be positive as well. And we can create what we call a resourceful state in NLP language. And a resourceful state is a positive state that we want to exhibit, want to feel. And this can be helpful because it can help us feel good inside. And if we feel good inside, then we're more likely to come across more confident as well. And people are then going to listen to us and believe that we are saying things that are valuable. So yeah, we will have a positive impact there. Now the thing is with anchors is we've all been setting anchors for, well, much of our lives. And we often have anchors around things that maybe we see, or maybe we hear, or maybe we taste, or maybe we smell, or it could be a touch thing as well. But sometimes we might hear a song that we've not heard for years, and it might take us back to a certain situation where we heard that song for the first time. We might see something. Flowers, for me, kind of evoke certain memories and sensations. Or it might be a smell. You know, what is that smell? It smells like my school and the disinfectant, or it smells like, you know, the apple crumble that my granny used to make, or things like that. So we have these different anchors that have been put into place throughout different points of our life for good or for bad. And they can bring all kinds of feelings and sensations up. And what we're talking about here is not leaving these things to chance, like my terrible traumatic event when I was 16, but actually finding some positive examples and programming these states from a positive perspective. So I use two kinds of anchors. One is called a kinesthetic anchor, and the other is called the circle of excellence. And they both work in a similar way, but we are anchoring the feelings in a slightly different way. So the kinesthetic one, I use knuckles, and knuckles are great because if I'm sitting down on my chair, I can have my hands under the table. Nobody needs to know what I'm doing. If I'm stood up, I can have my hands behind my back. I can even have my hands in front of my back, but I can easily find my knuckle and nobody needs to know what I'm doing. So I'm going to show you first of all about this. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to take myself in my memory to a time where I felt confident and credible. And this is how I want to show up when I am speaking, when I'm presenting to other people. So I want to show up as confident and credible. So I close my eyes and in my mind's eye, I think about this time. I imagine this time where I have felt confident and credible. And I take myself to this situation. And I do it from when I'm looking, when I am the first person, but you can also do it from the third person. And I see the room that I'm in. I see myself presenting. I see people listening. I see, handouts or props, whatever that were used. I hear people asking questions and I can't answer these questions. I hear myself talking confidently. I hear people asking thoughtful questions and giving me feedback afterwards. And I feel confident. I'm feeling confident and credible as I stand there and I talk to these people. So what I've done here is I've brought up that situation in my mind. I'm imagining it, and now I'm going to program it on my knuckles. So I'm going to pick one of my knuckles, and what I'm going to do as I'm seeing what I see, I feel what I feel, and I hear what I hear, and I'm going to program that feeling onto my knuckle and continue to see what I see, feel what I feel, hear what I hear. And then I'm going to open my eyes. And by opening my eyes, I change my state. And I'm back in my room. And it's 2024 when I'm making this video. But now, because I've programmed this feeling on my knuckle, when I press this knuckle, I've got that warm feeling of confidence and credibility. And I've programmed this now, and I can use this proactively as I go into a situation. And I can also use it reactively. So if I find myself in a situation and I'm feeling a little bit nervous or jittery, then I've got my anchor there. I can use that. I can bring this resourceful state about me. So that's one way of doing it. This is the kinesthetic anchor. The other one is called the circle of excellence. And this is an invisible circle in front of me. And this is really good for public speaking. And actually, when I am speaking in front of any group, unless I'm sat at home in my own house, I tend to stand up. So I'm going to stand up now. And so you're not going to be able to see all of this, but hopefully you'll get the gist. So I set this in a similar way. I'm stood up. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to take myself to that time when I'm feeling confident and credible. So I'm doing exactly the same things as when I set the kinesthetic anchor, but at the point when, instead of pressing my knuckle, I'm going to simply step forward into my circle of excellence. And as I'm here, I'm continuing to see what I see, hear what I hear, feel what I feel, and then I step back, I break that state, and I am back in my room again. Now, I've used both of these personally, and I've used them with clients as well, and I found them to be really effective. And these have really helped me not just put myself in situations where maybe a few years ago they would have been completely outside of my comfort zone, but I now really enjoy being in these situations, presenting to people, talking to people, and sharing my story. So hopefully my story resonates with you. I haven't always been confident speaking in group situations, presenting, speaking in front of an audience, but today I am, partly through practice and partly through the use of anchors. And I've helped lots of people in terms of setting their anchors and using them in different situations in terms of public speaking, presenting in meetings, and even in interviews as well. So if my story has resonated with you and you could benefit from some support in this area, please don't hesitate to get in touch.